What kind of a mother walks out on her children? Okay, this story here from Daily Mail Online, I'll go ahead and put a link down below. Walking out on my 3 girls was the best thing I ever did for them. Shocking admission of a mother who abandoned family after her marriage broke down. I was going to go ahead and read this story. I'll give you my opinions, my take on this. If we get enough people with viewer comments, I'll actually make a viewer comments video on this. So let's go ahead and get started. Beverly Craven often goes back to her former home to clean. She plumps the cushions, dusts, vacuums, and polishes the windows until they gleam. She's trying to sell this house that she bought, okay, when she was married. She also jet washes the terrace and its view over the pond, landscaping gardens, because, as she says, no one else does it quite as well as when you do it yourself. Singer-songwriter Beverly Craven, you go ahead and check out. She does have a hit from the 80s. So does her husband. We'll get back into it. 50 paid for this imposing £3 million pound, it looks like, 7-bedroom Buckinghamshire mansion with the royalties of her 90s hit Promise Me. So Beverly Craven, Promise Me. I actually went and saw the video. Some parts of the song's okay. Some kind of falls flat. But anyway, you can check it out if you have time or want to on YouTube. I did. Let's see. But though she owns the house and cleans it fastidiously, she owns it. This is important later. She does not live in it. Her home is a modest rented 3-bedroom terrace a couple of miles away. This is a weird setup, isn't it? Just off the main street in a historic town of Buckinghamshire. She moved there after her marriage to singer and lyricist Colin Campsey. Yes, he also did some songs. I checked it out on YouTube. I didn't find him that great either, to be honest. 57. Broke down 3 years ago. For a wife to walk away from her marriage after 16 years is not unusual. No, it isn't. And just a little knowledge here for men, or just women that want to know. Men, of course, commit suicide more than women. And there's 2 spikes, okay, age-wise, when men do this. One is when they're younger and they're teenagers, and that's usually gay men coming to having issues with their sexuality, or more to the point of other people having issues with it, and they're not quite old enough yet to deal with it. And so it is an issue of young men committing suicide like that. Now, now we're getting to the second spike here. Heterosexual men, when they start to off themselves, is because they have a marriage just like what happened here. And guess what? The wife is in a situation, we all know the way that marriages work out. Typically, although this is changing, and this is different in this story, which makes it even more interesting. A lot of interesting elements to the story. The man makes more money, and then he's the one that ends up living in a little house and loses custody of his kids and all that business. So, yeah. Continuing to read on. She moved there after her marriage to singer-songwriter Colin Campsey, 57, broke down 3 years ago. For a wife to walk away from a marriage of 16 years is not unusual. Okay, we're caught back up. What is singular, however, is for her to leave her children. 3 daughters. 3 daughters. And there are pictures and everything in the story. It's an interesting story. It really is. Beverly walked out on her 3 daughters, Molly, Brenna, and Connie. I think it's for Constance. And when they were aged 18, 15, and 14, she couldn't even wait 4 more years for the 14-year-old to hit 18, but whatever. She says it was one of the most traumatic, selfish acts of her life, but one she stands by. Now, there's a lot of, is there self-centeredness in some of the things that she says in the story? Yeah, but there's also a fair amount of honesty, which is refreshing in itself. This is a really interesting story, a lot of elements to it. I told them their dad and I weren't really getting on any longer, and I needed to move out. They were devastated, she says. I reassured them I'd just be around the corner. I chose a place halfway between the family home and their school, that they would each have a key and could visit any time they liked. Brenna, the fiery one, was crying and screaming. I knew she'd be distraught, but it was a bitter pill I had to swallow. There is some narcissism, okay, in this mother here. Is No, your daughter had to swallow, okay? And that's one thing that's missing from all the story, is I would love to get the daughter's perspective on this. And even the husband's. That would be pretty interesting. But there is some narcissism here, too. Connie went, there's honesty and narcissism, an interesting mix. Connie went extremely silent. Okay, it's another daughter. She's just like me. She doesn't show much emotion. I bet so. You're already starting to get a little bit idea about Beverly here. Kind of cold, okay? And Molly, well, she was somewhere in between the other. And when she explains it, but that doesn't mean she doesn't feel it. No, you're a cold person. However, her daughter's reactions did not deflect Beverly from her decision. Why would it? You're going to do whatever the fuck you want. Excuse my language. And she piled a few possessions, a sofa, a bed, some odd bits of furniture into her 4x4 and drove away. You're already seeing the difference. She's leaving. This is what normally the husband would be doing, and he would go live in the smaller house or the trailer by the river, or you get the idea. And the motorhome by the river, whatever. So what did she feel on this September afternoon as the wheels of her car crunched over the sweeping gravel drive and through the electric gates? Was there guilt, remorse, sorrow? No, it was relief. Just huge relief, she says. Can you imagine any mothers out there? I mean, just from what there's a lot more to this story, but what you're hearing, how could you do this? What's the driving force, right? What only certain types of women could abandon their kids like this and walk away and feel a huge, wow. Some feedback would be interesting. There are undoubtedly, of course, there are some mothers that kill their children as soon as they're born. So women don't have a universal set way they look at their children. Let's just be honest. Women are, there's similarities, but there's a lot of differences. Okay, there are undoubtedly some people who would consider me selfish. You've already said that you're selfish. But actually, I've been very selfless for many, many years. There was no regret, and there hasn't been since, not for 1 second. And of course, as you can see, it's all about her feelings. She's fairly honest about it, but it is about her. At the time, she believed she would be living separately from her girls for only a few months until the family home was sold, but the house remains on the market. No buyers yet have been forthcoming. Well, in the whole world, the way the housing market is, she probably picked a pretty bad time to try to sell a home. And it was her that was the driving force of buying it, actually, with her own money. And that's also part of the problem, as you'll see. My biggest sadness is the years I've missed living with the girls. I hadn't expected to be away from them for so long, she says. I said to them, you can come and see me whenever you want, but I wasn't insistent because I didn't want them to feel pulled in different directions. And in true teenage style, to begin with, they were very much wrapped up into themselves. So the husband is staying in a $3 million home. She's staying in some smaller place. The daughters are living with the husband. Okay, you can just see this is definitely not your typical situation. And as you'll see, it's because she's the main breadwinner. And at least right now, economically, whoever the main breadwinner is the one that gets crushed by this stuff. And you can already kind of tell the daughters were like, well, you walked out on us. Why? And she's like, well, they just says because they're teenagers. You can see the whole justification thing going here. I knew they wouldn't want to live in a pokey place with me and leave a beautiful house where they each had a lovely bedroom and a suite. But someone wiser than me said that the best thing you can do for teenagers is leave them alone. It's funny. She wanted to be away from them. In my own opinion, she's made excuses. She's got this all set up so that they could. The whole thing. Well, you can kind of, and you can hear what she said. You can visit me if you want, okay? But she left them, okay? How many mothers would have dragged their daughters out with them? Like, you're not staying here. You're going with me. That to me is the normal mother mode right there. But you can already see she is definitely not, in my opinion, she is and isn't a typical mother. So we'll kind of sort this out as we go. In some ways, when I left, I missed Buddy. Oh, God, I love this part. Buddy? Who's Buddy? My Staffordshire Bull Terrier more than the girls. Let me read that one more time. In some ways, when I left, I missed my Staffordshire Bull Terrier more than the girls. I knew how independent he was, or dependent, that he was on me. Okay, she missed him more than the girls, but she's justifying this by saying, well, this dog is, and dogs are great. I'm a dog person. I think dogs are awesome, okay? And there is some truth to what she's saying, but more than the girls. Okay, she's like, well, I could really use, you're seeing this. Buddy now lives with her. Of course he does, because she needs somebody. All about her. Okay. Not all women are like this. I am not even remotely going there. Human beings, male and female, have personalities, and they're all different. We're not all just clones. We're not all the same. All men and all women are definitely not the same. All right, moving on. Beverly looks fondly at him, curled up asleep. Looks fondly at him, curled up asleep in his basket. Right. If only people would curl up in baskets and be accessible to her whenever she wanted. You get the idea. As she moved around the small house with the grace of a cat, making coffee and chatting, her face scrubbed clean of makeup and framed by long dark hair, is beautiful and remarkably useful. Wow, whoever's writing this is totally hitting on this lady, or has a relationship with her already, if you know what I mean. The decision to leave her marriage was, she says, fraught and emotional. Okay. But it was one she made. She takes responsibility right there. She made it after a lot of thought. I'd often gone to my room and quietly sobbed my heart out. She said, I didn't leave Colin on a whim. I'd spent a good many years thinking about it. And that's another thing for men out there to remember. The smiling face while she's hating being with you. Just remember that. Get to know whoever you're with, man or woman. Get to know that other person, because you could definitely get blindsided here. For 8 years, we had rarely made love. So now she's saying, okay, there's been a problem about 8 years before she walked out. For 8 years, we'd rarely made love. We slept in separate bedrooms. I wonder who made that decision. Neither of us played a way that would have been disrespectful. She's saying neither one of them were cheating, which I completely, utterly think is probably BS. There was no one else on either side. I don't believe any of this. A lot of couples limp on in such adequate relationships for the sake of the children. Yes, they do, because they care more about the children than themselves. For years, I tried to pursue the dream to be the perfect wife and mom, but was also the main breadwinner, and I grew to resent it. I'm going to read that a couple more times. But I was also the main breadwinner, and I grew to resent it. I was also the main breadwinner, and I grew to resent it. I asked Colin if he would move out, and he flatly refused. Imagine that, okay? Imagine that. Imagine that. And I want to expand on something here. I want to read a little bit more and expand. So, as it was my decision, she's in charge of this whole thing, to leave the marriage because he didn't want it, I thought it important to bear the brunt, that I make the sacrifices. What a trooper. She admits on the one hand she's in control of this. This is all for her, but she's have you noticed at the end of all this, she's trying to justify it in another way. She owns it, and then she tries to throw some other stuff on top to cover it up. And you know what, Colin? Imagine. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to read a little bit more about him. Well, actually, we'll read more about him later. Now, he got to stay in the house. He got the kids. Okay, this is all incredible. And she was making like 90%, which I think she'll say a little bit more of the money. Now, imagine this, guys, okay, and women, of course. If he would have been more industrious, worked harder, made more money than her, You know what that would have got him in a divorce? He would be living in the little place, and she would be living in the big house because he was the primary breadwinner. So you know what? That a man got in society the way it is now by being the minor economic bringer in there. He got the big house and the girls, and she got the little house. Are you seeing how society in a lot of places in Western civilization, I'm an American as you can tell by my accent, is set up now? Economic. You see it. Okay. You see the reverse incentive now on males, okay, is to find, you see how this is, even though, but of course, from the biological perspective, most women resent it, okay, but a lot of wild stuff in this story. We didn't row, okay, fine, but I knew if we'd stayed in the same house, we'd have to start to, it would have descended into domestic warfare. You see how she justifies everything pretty well, actually. My parents had divorced after, oh boy, she's going to, and try to make herself the victim. She's a very good-looking woman, by the way. And her daughters, they all look very healthy, great-looking kids. That also lends another aspect to this story, which I think a lot of men watching this would be a lot softer on her. You know, this pretty smiling face with her smiling daughters, but I imagine that she's actually caused them quite a bit of problems. But anyway, like I said, I would love to see like an interview show where they're all down and actually the girls are actually allowed to express themselves, and even the husband. And he made out pretty well with all this, by the way. My parents are divorced, and it felt as though the roots of my security were being wrenched, and I didn't want that for my girls. Like I say, it's the same thing. She tells you what she's really doing and why in the beginning, and then she tries to justify it. Society judges mothers harshly when they leave their children. Imagine, no, let's make sure that we get this right. Now, what she said is correct, but women hate women that abuse or abandon. The hatred that men don't like it, okay, but women, most women reading this story, okay, hate you. Hate you. Okay, just my opinion. No matter the reasons for doing so, but she understands this. Men are treated with more tolerance for abandoning their children. When you have to play you should, I'm a mother, let me abandon my kids and don't, and this is what she's saying. I'm a mother, so when I abandon my kids, you should not hate me more than you hate men that abandon their kids. But women will hate other women that abandon their children much worse. They will halfway say they expect it from men, even though they shouldn't. But a woman to do this, so no. Your main problem is with women, okay? Just my opinion, all right? But gosh, she's like, well, don't hate me more than you would hate men. And it is often husbands who feel compelled to quit homes for which they have paid the lion's share of the mortgage when marriages fracture. There's a lot of honesty. This is not, what I love about this story, it's not a feminist hit piece. It's not a masculinist hit piece. There's a lot of facts in here, and it's very human. That's one other reason I reading this story. Okay, it's very human. But Beverly's case is unusual because it's good and bad mixed in it all together. She was the breadwinner, the main child care and homemaker. It's impossible to hear her story without feeling sympathy for her. I don't feel any sympathy for this person. But I don't hate her. She's a person she has this her personality. I think we're all hardwired, and she even kind of alludes to some of the things in here. She is who she is. She played out. But she made the choices. What you can definitely tell is she made all these choices. Okay, but people, you gotta In a sense, she was ensnared by her own success. She met Colin, then vocalist with the band, the Quick 22, and like I said, I went and saw both of their singing. She was okay, and the song was okay. Actually, it wasn't that great, and then I was much less impressed with him. 22 years ago, as her fame was burgeoning, she'd won a Brit Award in 1992 and went on to sell 4 million albums worldwide. Of course, if I'd heard her stuff in the 80s, maybe it was a lot more contemporary with the sound back then or what have you. No, not really. Her stuff isn't that good. Anyway, her first pregnancy was unplanned. Okay. And I can only give this from the guy's perspective. Is she's not using birth control, and she's not demanding, okay, unless it's rape, okay, this is consent. She's not demanding that he does. What's this unplanned business? Okay, really. But welcome, motherhood enveloped and consumed her with a dizzying speed. I'm not even going to go into this. We all know this whole thing. I don't believe in treating women like children. Okay, she knew what reproduction was. Okay, she knew how it worked. Even in the 80s, you have unprotected sex, you can get pregnant. So this whole, it just happened, and I don't know what. Yeah, whatever. I had 3 children under 5. I guess in under 5 years. 2 in the nappies, and I was breastfeeding. She said, I was also composing and writing from home. I found it difficult keeping so many balls in the air. I think at the point, well, where's the husband then? Where's your, I think at that point, problems started to surface in my relationship with Colin. I wanted him to shoulder more of the responsibility for earning. So she's gotten the children, okay. Somehow, like the Virgin Mary, she got impregnated, okay, from her. Somehow, she met a guy that she liked, and then had unprotected sex with him, and she got pregnant. So, this is, and now, is he also to blame? Yes, he is, because he should have worn a condom. Okay, so, but there's no innocent person here. 2 people had sex, unprotected, and they started having kids. Okay, and now she's got kids, and now she wants to spend time raising her kids, and she wants him now to make money so that she doesn't have to earn money also. There you are. Just everybody keep in mind, this is a really interesting story. But we could live more than adequately on my earnings. So she's making more than enough is what she's saying, but it's pissing her off, okay, because he isn't bringing home the bacon. Okay, she's bringing it home and cooking it, and this is pissing her off. So he didn't have any impetus to do so. A lot of honesty here. A lot of honesty. All, like she says, more than adequate. She's making more than adequate. So he, just being himself there with her, isn't enough. So having the bills paid, okay, having happy children and the bills paid isn't enough, because if she's putting more, she's like, well, why? What is he? She's like, look, if she wants to get sex with a man, right, she doesn't have to get married to lock that in. She can, other men will have sex with her. So she's like, well, so it comes down to economics. It's kind of sad, isn't it? But there's the biology. We're hardwired. It's pretty messed up. But she's very honest with this, okay? At least in the beginnings. Okay, I wanted him to shoulder more of the responsibility for earning. But we could live more than adequately on my own earnings. Okay, so I've caught up. There was another problem at the heart of their relationship. Beverly did not love Colin. She had unprotected sex with a man. She had 3 daughters, 3 kids, and quick, within under 5 years, with a man that she doesn't love. Men in particular zero in on this right here. A man that she doesn't love. She admits it. Beverly did not love Colin. And then she thought she would have these kids, which she did. She was, now look, who's in control of the situation? He should have wore a condom and never got into this, okay? But she's in control of this. And then she just thought, well, I'll have the kids, and he'll go make the money, and I can kick back. But even though she's making more than enough money, it's just she's like, well, why is this guy here? I can get, what's between his pants anywhere I want. It all boiled down to a paycheck for her while she's having the kids. There was another, when they met in 1991, backstage at a Tears for Fears concert. Much better band. She had found him funny, quick-witted, and gregarious. Okay, but she didn't love him. Okay, Colin had, now this isn't Colin's word, Colin had fallen instantly in love with her. Now as men, we have men and women have problems. They're not always the same problems. Men have real issues confusing sex and love. Okay, as a man, I'll just tell you this. There's a real problem, especially younger. Real problems separating sex and love. It tends to get all mushed together and leads to bad things. Okay. And he confided to a friend that night that he intended to marry her. Ooh. Beverly's reaction was less fulsome. So he wants to marry her. He likes her. She thinks that he's funny, quick-witted, and gregarious, but she was not that interested. Colin wasn't the archetype good-looking bloke. Ooh, boy. But he had bags of personality. So she didn't find him... She had 3 kids with him, though. See, just look at this. She has 3 kids in under 5 years, but she doesn't love him, and she doesn't find him that physically attractive. Okay, the problem with their relationship is the money that melts down. They began a relationship with a man that she's not sexually attracted to, and that that she doesn't love. As it progressed, she concluded, settling, it sounds like. I thought I might not be in love with him. Gosh. But I felt I could work on it because everything else was in place. What the hell does that mean? So, there was trust, understanding, fondishness. Trust, understanding, and fondishness. I thought love might come eventually. It's like the money you thought he was going to make, right? That was going to come eventually too. So you never got no love and no money. But love was still eluding her when she became pregnant with Molly. Colin, she believed, had the potential to be a good father, so she persevered. She put it on herself to persevere with a relationship. She chose this. She settled for it. But this is why. She sees a guy that she thinks could be a good father to her kids, and she's already thinking, maybe I'll fall in love with him later, even though I don't care for him now. I'm not physically that attracted to him, but he'll make some money. In December 1994, they were married in Coolridge Castle near Loch Lomond. I mispronounce things all the time, so, overlooking approximately the Kempsey Fells. Molly was 3 and Beverly was pregnant with Brina. Tying the knot seemed the right thing to do. Yeah, probably. Okay, so they weren't even married yet. The family set up home, but I think the marriage was also about the same time she was wanting him to start kicking in more money. The family set up home in Kilburn, northwest London, where the girls attended smart private schools. At Beverly's made plans to decamp to the home counties. But before they moved, her busy life was thrown into turmoil. And this is where it starts turning into Breaking Bad in a way. Okay. In spring 2005, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. After an operation to remove the tumor in the course of radiotherapy for the first time, Beverly was forced to confront her mortality. A cousin had been diagnosed. She had developed secondary tumors and died at age 46. My experience of the disease was terrifying. So now she's putting up with all this stuff, and now she gets cancer. Okay. That she created. I want to make sure. She's not happy. But was this the husband that helped? That he was the sperm donor in all this, okay? But this is her. This is a whole chain of her decisions, mainly. It's almost like very little from the guy. Thankfully, she made a full recovery. Well, good. But this brush with the life-threatening disease proved pivotal. The cancer had been a bolt from the blue. I had survived it and made me feel I'd been given a second chance on life, she says. I actually have an understanding of what that means. Not with cancer, but I can feel her there. I also thought, blimey, our time on earth is short. I started to think I couldn't stay in a marriage that was numb and passionless. I had to get on with my life to really live it. That's when the urgency, the impatience set in, and I thought, I can't spend the rest of my life knowing I'll never feel the rush of passion or love. Despite these feelings, in 2006, she and Colin bought their beautiful Leffin-style home for $1.3 million. To the casual observer, her life seemed blissful. So in 2005, she gets a cancer, and she's got to get out of this marriage. Why did they buy the house? Now it says she and Colin bought, but she's the primary breadwinner. Okay? So she buys this big house. She's like, I'm leaving this guy. So she already knows in 2005, I'm kicking this guy to the curb. And then she gets a big house. Okay. But the fault lines in their marriage were growing deeper. So she already knows, I'm dumping this guy, gets the big house. Already sleeping in separate bedrooms in London. Beverly and Colin made no pretense of sharing one when they moved to Buckinghamshire. So she's already not having sex with this guy, doesn't like him, the cancer, everything, 2005, and they're going to move into the house. Colin had the master bedroom. I had a smaller one, and often Connie would come creep in with me at night, which I loved. So on the rare occasions when Colin walked down the corridor to my room, Connie would be there asleep, and he'd go away again. Okay. As their intimacy dwindled, so too. So she's got her daughter in there to make sure her husband stays away. As her intimacy dwindled, so too did Beverly's respect for her husband. As their intimacy dwindled, so too did Beverly's respect for her husband. She married a guy that she admit she didn't love him when she married him. Okay. She didn't find him that physically attractive. Okay. I started to feel resentful that, as well as caring for the 3 children, and here, she's so honest about this too, I was earning 90% of our income, she says. So, they're living in a $1.3 million home, and she's bringing in money, and evidently they're still living well. She still has them in really good schools. She's earning all this money. So it isn't a lack of money. You know, you hear people arguing and fighting because of, money issues and everything, but typically they're middle class or lower middle class or what have you, or poor people, when things start to break down. But so the overall total of money is just great. Okay. It's just that she's earning 90% of it, and she's like, this guy's earning the 10%. All right, and the guy's like, evidently, so, but this is also a point of the new way that society is. What happens when women actually start being, things are reversed, and this is one aspect of all this thing, is what happens when the biology that men and women have had for all these years in a more tribal setting, everything, we get into modern society, and you're seeing how we are still biologically these people running around these huge tribes of families and extended families and everything, and men and women, even though society opens up, it's still there. The biology's still there. She says, women want to be cared for emotionally and financially. I would say that's probably true. I would say that's probably true. I'd say men would but you know what? Men also want to emotionally be cared for. And more men are also fine with being financially cared for. I don't know how to break it to you. It's hardwired into us. And if your husband is not a provider, then respect leeches away. Now, all right, I'm going to be relaxed. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Everything that happened to this woman, okay, and this is what I said in the beginning. If economically this would have been reversed, she still would have dumped him. She would just be living in the big house. That's the only change in all this. Okay, so I'm not buying this part of it here, okay, because anyway, the couple tried to retrieve their relationship. They went to marriage counseling, but it failed to draw them closer. Well, of course, there's nothing to build. The marriage was a BS to begin with back in decades ago when you got it. Why would it be better now? Beverly felt increasingly bereft and isolated. And the huge house only compounded the problem, which I'm sure she was the prime driver to get. And considering that she was making 90% of the money, I can't see. Let me put it this way: if he would have forced her to get this house and she's making 90, I'm sure that would have been in this story. He forced us to get this house that I didn't want, so she wanted the house. What had all my money bought me? I was rattling around in a big house, and we weren't actually a family. All I felt was loneliness. Right? She's biologically driven to have the children, and then we see where this goes. So, propelled by the conviction that there must be more to life, 3 years ago to the week, she moved out. I met Beverly at her house, which was just one downstairs room, subdivided into a kitchen and sitting area, even her few carefully chosen possessions crammed in it. But she says she is happy and is dating a man she met via internet. But there are no plans to marry again. Also, another thing, I probably really shouldn't get into this whole thing, but I'm kind of questioning this. But anyway, at some point you have to kind of question: is she what is her sexuality? Let's just go to the deal here, okay? And I've seen the guy, so is it that she wants to see men and women, or just it doesn't sound like she's guy crazy, okay? It sounds like she wanted a place where she could, do what she wanted. But anyway, I think you kind of get the idea. She continues to perform, is writing songs for a new album, and has just written her autobiography, Truth Be Told. She's not that big a star. Maybe in the UK, she's much bigger. Okay, her and her husband, I guess. I don't know. Outside, not so much. Like I said, I saw her stuff, and it wasn't that great. Oh, I saw one song, so maybe she's got other stuff. But her hit wasn't that great. Her girls visit often. Molly, 21, and final year of French degree at Nottingham, is due for lunch. That doesn't sound like a big money-making French degree thing. Brenna has just started studying events management in Bournemouth University. Events management, throwing parties. And the sixth former, Connie, a performer and songwriter like her mom, hosts a steady music. Well, hopefully they can make a living doing that. The girls are but then again her mother did. The girls are well adjusted and happy. That's how I know I've done everything right. Like I say, I would love to see a Dr. Phil kind of thing with the girls talking. I'm sure it would be a little different. When I left, I wondered what I might have screwed up my relationship with them, but I haven't. And the wonderful thing about being here is that it's because it's so tiny. When they come around, we're all crammed into the same room, chatting and laughing, rather than disappearing into our own wings. It gratifies me that they've all said that when they become moms, they want to be like me. It makes me feel vindicated. What's that? Abandoned their kids? That's crazy. It saddened her that her divorce finalized in 2011. Why would it? She has a lot of honesty in here, but she's also got some. What I mean, it saddened her. How can you say that you live in a prison and you want out, and then it saddens me when my parole came up and they let me out? Give me a break. Descended into acrimony once. Well, that's what she was pissed at. Oh, this does get pretty interesting. Descended into acrimony once lawyers were involved. She had to relinquish half of everything. That's right. her home, investments, pension, Colin, and she still feels irked. Now she knows how most men feel when they get into marriage. You get ripped off. Okay? But remember, who initiated the divorce? Was it him? No. Of course, he had it made. Why would he do that? But she did it, and she's having to pay for it. Normally, it's the opposite. Okay? The primary breadwinner, the man, it's normally women that push it, and they end up with half. So she's finding out how that feels economically. But then again, what do you need? A little house is enough. It's easy to clean and heat. I'm just hoping that the family home will sell quickly. The girls are ready to leave it and move on. They're probably willing to just stay there forever. It sounds like. But anyway, then I'll be able to buy a nice little house they can come to and split their time with me and their dad. They're very much my priority. They always have been. You abandoned them. You moved out of the house because you wanted to be just you. You didn't take your daughters with you. But at the same point in life, you have to look at yourself. Just because you've become a mom, it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice everything. Now, people are going to look at this story very differently. I want to wrap this up because I can't believe this went. I didn't think this would go over 25 minutes, but it's over 45. But anyway, to wrap this up, she's honest in parts, and then the other parts she isn't. Biology. I don't hate this woman. I don't have a lot of respect for her. But men and women, there are undercurrents, like I said, biology, that of having expectations of each other by gender, whether we like it or not. And that's just the way it ends up with most people. All right, I appreciate you listening. This is Steve's News and Opinions. If you leave comments, if I get enough comments on here, I like to do viewer comment videos and go ahead and make another video of what you've put down there. I find that stuff pretty interesting. This is Steve News and Opinions, out.